In the lush bloom of an April spring, an unexpected marriage proposal changed the course of my life. Henry, a seasoned businessman with whom I maintained professional ties, approached me with an offer. "Sophia, I'd like you to meet someone," he said with a warm smile. Initially hesitant, my curiosity got the better of me after his persistent urging. The man I was to meet was Ethan, Henry's youngest son. Unlike his older sisters, Ethan had come close to marrying several times, yet remained single. At our first meeting, conditioned upon my agreement, I found Ethan to be polite and charming, which made me warm up to the idea of potentially marrying him. Henry and Ethan were thrilled when I suggested we start dating. Everything began smoothly, and it seemed a match well made. However, as weeks passed, subtle nuances in Ethan's demeanor began to surface, revealing a different side of him. About 3 weeks into our relationship, during our third date, Ethan casually remarked, "We're already like a couple, aren't we?" His tone was light, but something about it felt off. He took me to an upscale restaurant, boasting, "You wouldn't normally get to come to a place like this, right? It must be unusual for you." I managed a polite smile, though I had dined there just days before with a friend. To spare his feelings, I kept that detail to myself. At the restaurant, I noticed Ethan wore a different watch. "That's a lovely watch, it suits you well," I complimented, aiming to keep the conversation light. Flustered, Ethan offered it for me to examine more closely. "Feel free to take a closer look. It's not often you see something this high-end," he said, mistaking my polite interest for admiration. Reluctantly, I inspected the watch. Watches held little interest for me. I found checking the time on my smartphone sufficient. Later, Ethan's eyes landed on my handbag, a piece crafted to my specifications and reflecting my taste for simplicity and function. "Don't you have a proper bag?" he questioned, scanning its unbranded surface. "I think you should have something more prestigious." I explained that it was custom-made at an Italian workshop, designed to be discreet yet elegant. Ethan struggled to understand the true value of such bespoke craftsmanship. These exchanges, peppered with Ethan's unintentionally condescending remarks, made me rethink our compatibility. Despite his genuine kindness, his sheltered upbringing seemed to taint his understanding of different lifestyles. Then, at a family gathering intended to introduce me to Ethan's parents, the situation escalated unexpectedly. Myla, Ethan's mother, perhaps overwhelmed by emotions, splashed champagne in my face as I greeted them. Far from apologizing, Ethan erupted in laughter, turning the incident into a joke at my expense. In that moment, surrounded by the fragrance of spring yet drenched in champagne, I realized the profound mismatch not just in our personalities but in our values. I told them calmly, "This relationship, and any business dealings tied to it, cannot continue." The shock was evident on their faces, particularly when Ethan's father, Wyatt, realized the implications of my words on their future business prospects. Leaving the gathering, I felt a mix of relief and resolution. The encounter, though painful, reaffirmed my independence and the values I held dear in both personal and professional realms. I am Sophia Hall, a single 42-year-old who values her solitude, enriched by hobbies and a fulfilling career, unswayed by the conventional allure of marriage. As I walked away, I knew this chapter was closed, but my story was far from over. Despite not fully grasping the complexities of the world, the discomfort lingered. At one point, I considered the drastic step of reevaluating my marriage. Having only met 4 times, it seemed premature to contemplate separation, so I opted to observe how our relationship would evolve. We continued dating, and though Ethan sometimes showed signs of immaturity, he was fundamentally honest. He had abandoned the peculiar behaviors he initially displayed. An elder celebrity once shared on a TV show that patience and understanding gradually nurture love. Those words resonated with me, especially when Ethan and I visited a renowned hotel buffet on our 5th date. Ethan heaped his plate with an excessive amount of food, prompting me to ask if he was sure he could finish it all. His laughter in response surprised me. He brushed off my concern, joking about my frugal mindset. But I couldn't overlook his disregard for food wastage and its implications, not just financially, but environmentally too. Ethan apologized when he sensed my sternness, revealing his mother's suspicion that I was only with him for financial gain. The term mommy he used struck me as unusual, hinting at an odd family dynamic. As our date ended, Ethan's proposal caught me off guard. His earnestness brought me joy, despite the red flags. 5 months into our acquaintance, I felt ready to advance our relationship. I envisioned us overcoming our flaws together. Yet, when Ethan suggested I quit my job and embrace domesticity, dictating terms with a smile, my initial joy turned to dismay. His presumption was a deal-breaker. After a brief period of reflection, influenced by his friend's misguided advice, Ethan sought reconciliation. His genuine remorse began to mend my indignation. Despite the setbacks, I held on to the affection I felt for him, recognizing his naive sincerity. It's important to remember that perfection is unattainable from the start. A month later, we prepared to introduce our families, marking a significant step towards our marriage. Although I had professional ties with Ethan's father, visiting their family home as a prospective daughter-in-law filled me with nerves. Despite Ethan's usual kindness, something seemed amiss. His nervousness about introducing me to his mother suggested potential familial tensions, but I remained hopeful. Known for her diligence and warmth, I believed a heartfelt conversation could bridge any gaps between us. I was completely taken aback the moment I entered the room where we were meant to meet. As I stepped in, I was immediately splashed in the face with a liquid, causing intense pain in my eyes and a sharp irritation in my nose that made me cough violently. Panicked by the sudden assault, I barely heard a voice taunting me, saying they had rid the place of a foul smell on my behalf and that I should be grateful. The room was filled with a mix of bitterness and warmth, and it dawned on me that the liquid was champagne. Confusion set in about why this had happened to me. Wyatt, equally shocked, shouted, "Myla, what are you doing?" It became clear then Myla, my fiancé Ethan's mother and my potential future mother-in-law, was the one who had thrown the champagne at me. I remembered Ethan's demeaning attitude towards me, which seemed to stem from Myla. Laughing, Ethan found the situation amusing and cheered on his mother. That moment crystallized for me the futility of everything up to that point. My heart sank with the realization of sheer emptiness. I decided then to sever all business ties with their company. My announcement caused both Ethan and Myla to gasp in surprise, looking at each other in hushed tones, likely whispering about the implications. During this, Wyatt stood by, silent and visibly shaken. I turned to him, expressing gratitude for past cooperation and hinting at the conditions we had set to prevent such incidents. When I confronted Myla and Ethan, Myla looked suspiciously at Wyatt and then fixed a stern gaze on me. Ethan observed her reaction, puzzled. I spoke calmly, revealing that part of the agreement in our engagement was to keep my identity as a company-wide secret until the marriage was confirmed. My position had been concealed to assess Ethan's character without the influence of my professional status. I revealed my role publicly for the first time, presenting my business card to Myla, showing that I have been a key partner in her husband's business dealings for over a decade. Ethan's face drained of color as he recognized the significance of my company's name. I explained that I had disguised my appearance during our meetings to gauge his genuine personality, which, in hindsight, seemed a wasted effort. Apologizing to Wyatt, I formally withdrew my marriage proposal and suggested a pause in our business relations to reassess the situation. As I sat down, I calmly elaborated on the business implications to a flustered Wyatt, emphasizing the need to evaluate the reliability of a future business partner, especially with his plans of retiring and passing responsibilities to Ethan. The intended familial tie through marriage to secure our business relationship had disastrously backfired. Regretfully, I told them of my decision to step back, not out of impulse but due to a reasoned reassessment of trust and professionalism, vital for any enduring partnership. I left them with these thoughts, marking a definitive end to both a personal and professional alliance that had shown its true colors all too vividly. Over the past decade, I have cultivated a strong professional relationship with Wyatt's company. My company, recognized for its innovative approach led by women, has seen significant growth recently, leading to more interactions with Wyatt's business. However, internal discussions have been ongoing about potentially partnering with new businesses. Amidst this backdrop, an unexpected marriage proposal emerged, suggesting Wyatt might have been trying to secure his ties with us due to our shifting business strategies, something that was not exactly hidden from public knowledge. Upon revealing my identity, Milo and Ethan seemed quite upset. I took the opportunity to clarify our position further, explaining that we were considering whether to continue our dealings with their company, especially in light of hearing about their management troubles. "Are you aware of these issues?" I asked, as their existing contracts neared their end, a crucial point for our decisions. Milo reacted with shock, visibly disturbed, while Wyatt appeared flustered and anxious. It was clear that the company's challenges hadn't been openly discussed among his family members. Ethan looked confused, not fully aware of his company's predicament, despite his insider status. In light of these revelations, Wyatt had pushed for this meeting with Ethan, possibly viewing the marriage as a strategic move to solidify our business relationship in face of his company's instability. Myla, previously dismissive, now seemed overwhelmed by the scale of her company's problems, which dwarfed her earlier criticisms of us. Wyatt's company, once a market leader, now lagged behind competitors who had surpassed them technologically and offered more competitive pricing. Their production was costly and inefficient, with stringent labor practices that were not only outdated but detrimental to their reputation and employee morale. These issues threatened to not only hurt their standing but also potentially tarnish the reputations of associated partners. The conversation took a tense turn when Myla accused us of threatening to sever ties based on personal grievances, calling it a despicable act of blackmail. Her reaction was unexpected and without any prior apology, which spoke volumes about her attitude. Before I could respond, Wyatt intervened, loudly blaming me for the fallout, a surprising twist given that the root of the issue lay within his actions. Indeed, if Wyatt had been transparent with his family, particularly with his wife, much of the misunderstanding could have been avoided. It was evident that his decisions were driven by a desire to maintain stability. But this approach had backfired, leaving everyone in a precarious position. As the discussion ended, I was left reflecting on the complexity of business relationships intertwined with personal dynamics, relieved that I could still reconsider our future dealings without being tied down by an unforeseen alliance. My encounter with my future mother-in-law and her son, Ethan, was disappointing and disheartening. Ethan, pale and visibly shaken, clung to Myla's hand as if he couldn't stand on his own. At 42, it was troubling to see a man still so dependent on his mother. I met his gaze with a mixture of pity and disbelief, particularly when he tried to undermine my integrity by accusing me of falsehoods, including pretending to be poor and not truly being his father's business partner. I explained calmly that my choice of a plain but expensive custom-made leather bag over flashy brand names was a preference for quality and sustainability, not a sign of poverty. I also shared my thoughts on the wastefulness of ordering more food than one could eat, highlighting that my critique was about respect and propriety, not financial necessity. Myla seemed surprised by the quality of my belongings, her quick glance turning into an embarrassed look away. I continued, emphasizing the importance of knowing one's business partners well, which is a standard in any significant business relationship. Ethan's immaturity became even more apparent when his father, Wyatt, recognized me and confirmed our business connection. Ethan's behavior, childlike and out of place, only deepened my disappointment. As the conversation turned towards the financial instability of their company, Ethan's desperation showed. He clung to his mother, pleading for understanding, tears in his eyes. Wyatt's apologies were profuse but lacked a proposal for resolution. As he repeated his sorry state, I realized that engaging further in this relationship, both personal and professional, was untenable. I stated firmly that the engagement could not proceed, especially given the disrespectful behavior of Ethan's mother, which he never tried to curb. In response to my decision, Wyatt appeared resigned but understanding. I had hoped Ethan might show potential for change, but this encounter proved otherwise. He often parroted his mother's views as a shield against criticism, a tactic that crumbled under scrutiny. This pattern of behavior and his inability to stand independently were clear. Ultimately, Wyatt announced a drastic decision to divorce and restructure the company. This revelation caused further turmoil, with Myla and Ethan protesting their sudden upheaval. Despite their objections, I decided it was time to leave, reaffirmed in my decision to end the engagement and maintain my dignity. 5 months later, Wyatt stepped down, and the company underwent significant changes. As for me, I left the meeting with a sense of closure, ready to move past the disappointing engagement and focus on my future. The resignation was primarily due to the company's worsening performance, largely attributed to the cancellation of a significant contract. A new Wyatt, who was formerly my subordinate, took over and initiated a comprehensive overhaul of our business operations, moving away from family-run management, which received positive feedback and improved external evaluations. This Wyatt was proactive in launching new products, and the positive results were starting to become evident. It seemed likely that previously halted transactions would soon resume. In another part of my life, Wyatt and Myla finalized their divorce. Ethan moved out to start a new chapter with Myla, but rumors of their daily disputes persist. The relationship between Ethan and his mother, once considered close, now appears to have been predominantly based on financial convenience. After leaving his father's company, Ethan struggled to find employment and relied financially on Myla, who eventually left him under his father's care and vanished. Now living alone in a modest apartment, Myla, who used to enjoy a lavish lifestyle, finds herself isolated without supporters or friends. About a year after Wyatt's retirement, I unexpectedly met him at his old company. He apologized for past troubles and mentioned that despite transferring half of his assets to Myla, her financial woes continued due to Ethan's demands and her own unrestrained spending. Wyatt, who initially wanted to distance himself from Ethan, was shocked to discover Ethan's lack of basic life skills, like boiling water. Now, they live together, and Coleman is taking a firm hand in teaching Ethan various life skills, as Ethan had heavily depended on Myla before. Reflecting on these events, Coleman expressed regret over not taking adequate care of his son and wife previously. Despite this, he is now actively involved in helping Ethan adapt to daily life and part-time work, despite Ethan's frequent emotional challenges. Coleman no longer wishes to be involved with him beyond this necessary support. 1 year later, my own company is flourishing with improved performance and a rising stock price. Personally, I've decided against marriage, a decision supported by my parents when I dissolved my previous engagement. I've embraced a dedication to my career, which my parents strongly support, and I've adopted new hobbies like working out at the gym, which has become a visible testament to my personal growth. My colleagues respect and admire these changes. I believe in creating my own happiness rather than depending solely on relationships. If I ever fall in love again, I'd prefer it to be later in life when I can afford to focus solely on it. For now, I'm content with a fulfilling life and continue to strive towards a promising future.